Hi, Andrew here, and once again, I gotta hand it to Dumb and Dumber Blackface Hitler. In what way? Well, this is one of those where I'm not really gonna hand it to him, I'm gonna more give it to him. And the way in question is he may be a stupid, fascist, racist piece of crap and the worst prime minister in Canadian history, but he is a determined fascist, racist, piece of crap, worst Canadian prime minister in history. Have you paid any attention to what's happened in Ceylon? I'm not supposed to call it Ceylon. I'm supposed to call it Sri Lanka. Have you paid any attention to what's happened in Sri Lanka? A year ago, their government, completely captured by the World Economic Forum, decided that it was time to go organic, green, blah, blah farming. That modern industrial farming with fertilizers, pesticides, etc., was the devil, and that they were going to do away with it. Within a year, their crop yields collapsed, and they went from being a net exporter of food to starving. I read somewhere that the government was actually talking about reducing the workday so that they could go home to 10 gardens so they could grow food in their backyards. They're starving. Civilization is 9 meals from anarchy. If you can't feed your children for 3 days, if on that morning of the 4th day they're crying and there's no food, no breakfast for them to eat, what are you going to do? Well, the Sri Lankans stormed their parliament and tossed their elites' cars in the ocean and the rivers. That's what they did. They ousted the government. But they didn't just go from feeding themselves to starving. They went from paying and servicing their debts, being a moderately well-off nation, to being broke. How? They did the same thing. They have one major export crop, tea. The history of tea is fascinating, and maybe I'll recount it sometime, about how the British stole tea from the Chinese and took it to Ceylon. And they set up tea plantations, and it was their cash crop. But their cash crop collapsed because they weren't fertilizing and pesticiding. Well, the Dutch, the number 2 exporter of food in the world, tiny little nation. I was shocked. Takes a lot to surprise old Andrew. I'm generally reasonably well informed, but I had no idea that the Netherlands was the world's number 2 exporter of food. They are a huge farming country, tiny little country. They fit inside an itty-bitty little part of Canada, but they produce and export massive amounts of food. And their government is trying to do to them what the Sri Lankan government did to itself. Well, the Dutch farmers don't particularly want this. That's putting it mildly. And they're basically an open revolt. What the little noisy little trucker protest that left Dumb and Dumber Blackface Hitler shitting his pants and running to the cabin in the woods, nothing compared to what the Dutch have been doing. They're backing up manure spreaders and spraying pig shit all over government buildings. They're blocking highways. They're shutting shit down. Their lives are at stake. And they saw what the WEF's environmental policies did to Sri Lanka. They don't want to starve. They don't want to be broke and starving. Well, a smart man would look at that and say, probably be a good idea not to do that. But Dumb and Dumber Blackface Hitler isn't a smart man. He sees Sri Lanka and the Netherlands and says, I gotta get me some of that. And he's going to implement the same stupid-ass policies that led to starvation and revolution in Sri Lanka, that have led to open revolt of the Dutch farmers in Canada. And being a fascist goober who thinks he's above the law, and considering that he committed an open obstruction of justice crime that would have put you and me in an orange jumpsuit, and his punishment was to get reelected, he's probably perfectly justified in considering himself to be above the law. Hey, he's fucking Dumb and Dumber Blackface Hitler Trust Fund Trudeau. He's goddamn untouchable. So what's he doing? He's sending federal agents to commit crimes in Saskatchewan. Damn, he is genuinely not a chip off the old block. I'll send the RCMP to burn down barns in Quebec to justify invoking martial law. That was Pierre, the father. Now, Dumb and Dumber, the adopted son of Castro, is sending federal agents onto private land in Quebec to take phosphate water and soil measurements. Well, they're trespassing. They're committing a crime, and punishable by years in prison and hundreds of thousands in fines, I believe is what I saw in the paper. And Scott Moe, the premier of Alberta, God, my brain's not working properly. The premier of Saskatchewan has sent a cease and desist letter to Dumb and Dumber that if these federal agents continue to trespass and harass Saskatchewan farmers, they will be prosecuted. I talk about signs and portents, about things that I see that might be coming. Sorry for the sudden change in attire, but the last recording session came to an abrupt end. Anyway, I was talking, if I remember correctly, about Dumb and Dumber Blackface Hitler being an extremely determined son of a bitch who's busy sending federal inspectors onto private land in Saskatchewan in violation of trespassing laws, and that the premier of Saskatchewan has told the dumb son of a bitch to stop doing this. Now, this is interesting, because there's federal jurisdiction, there's provincial jurisdiction. Who is he sending? Is this just bureaucrats? Is this just pencil pushers from the Department of "You will respect my authority while I starve you"? I don't know. But if Premier Moe is correct, and the people who are the inspectors are in fact committing crimes, and if he in fact starts charging them, if he has the Saskatchewan provincial police charging them with trespass to property, well, isn't this going to open an interesting can of worms? Because there is a provision in the law, or there is a reading of the law, that the federal government overrides, and they can do this, but the provincial government is aiming to stop this. So not only is Blackface Dumb and Dumber, Dumb and Dumber Blackface Hitler in the midst of trying to starve us by destroying our ability to grow food. Well, actually, he's probably not going to starve us. He's going to starve poor people in the brown and black world. But we know he's a racist piece of garbage, so what does he care if a bunch of brown and black people who depend on our food exports die? He's not going to see it. And as a narcissistic sociopath, he's not going to care. But anyway, leaving that aside, he's opening up a constitutional crisis can of worms here. This is the sort of thing that tears nations apart. So if we scroll back to the beginning, where I said he may be a racist, fascist, stupid son of a bitch, but he's a determined racist, fascist, stupid son of a bitch, I stand by it. He's willing, Dumb and Dumber Blackface Hitler appears to be willing to literally tear the country in two to pursue Klaus Schwab's agenda. Isn't that a kick in the seat of the pants? Well, food for thought anyway. Thank you very much for watching. That was my time. Now it's your time. And in the meantime, brace yourself. Things are getting nasty, aren't they? Take care, and you'll see me soon.